In the sudden arrival of the apocalypse, I risked my life to gather supplies to exchange for medicine to save my grandmother's life. After Grandma was full and satisfied, she hated me for not having the ability to save her precious grandson and betrayed my secret to outsiders. I fought desperately to drag them down with me. Consciousness returned again, and my grandmother was stealing my safety pendant. "You worthless piece of trash. You don't deserve to wear this treasure." My head was pounding. My body was burning, as my grandmother yanked at my neck, cutting the red string. In a fit of anger, she accidentally bumped into me, exclaiming in shock, "I won't become a short-lived ghost in this lifetime, will I? This life?" I fell back onto the bed, my eyes tightly shut as if I were completely unaware, but in reality, if the scissors came any closer by a centimeter, I would not hesitate to strike and cut her throat. After struggling for so long in the post-apocalyptic world, the reflexes have already been ingrained in my bones. Fortunately, Grandma took the peace pendant and left the room, first kneeling in the living room to pray to the gods and Buddha, then swearing to the ancestors that she would protect the lineage of the old Qing family. After a busy day, it seemed she had gained nothing, and she was so angry that she cursed loudly. I felt as if I were engulfed in flames, my mind filled with a constantly twisting space, while my senses became extraordinarily sharp, and my consciousness was clearer than ever before. Grandma lowered her voice and answered the phone. "Ao Yao, why do you care about that ungrateful wretch's life or death? She never regarded you as a brother." Xing Jiao exclaimed excitedly. "We can't let Xing Yu die yet. Grandma, please remember what I said. Don't touch the safety buckle and don't let any blood drop on it. I'll be back soon." The background faintly echoed with my mother's disapproving voice, which only quieted down after being shouted at by Xing Jiao. Grandma's words were pleasant to hear, but she turned and cut her finger to drip blood onto the safety buckle, trying to claim the space for herself first. Unfortunately, it is destined to be a futile effort, because the space has never been the mystery of the peace button, but rather the supernatural ability that I awakened. My poor grandmother was in so much pain that she cursed loudly, roughly shoving fever-reducing medicine into my hands. "Hurry up and swallow it. In another month, this fever-reducing medicine will be more expensive than your worthless life." Her tone was filled with disgust, completely forgetting who in her past life braved the torrential flood to find her pressure relief pills, and who ensured her blood sugar remained stable during times of extreme scarcity. "But I will not forget the betrayal from my blood relatives. Great, Grandma has been reborn too. In this life, I want her to truly experience what the real apocalypse is." Xing Jiao returned very quickly. Unlike their parents, contemporary college students are very familiar with concepts like rebirth, the apocalypse, and space, and they unhesitatingly choose to believe their grandmother's words. However, he tried various methods, even soaking the peace pendant in blood, but still could not activate the space. Grandma racked her brains to recall that in my past life, I used spatial abilities to collect resources, but unfortunately, she had been reaping the benefits all along. Her words were jumbled and increasingly suspicious. Mom coldly snorted. "You wouldn't have had a nightmare from listening to too many novels, would you?" Dad sighed. "Mom, it's too dangerous for you to go to Qinghai with your high blood pressure. Didn't we agree to take you to Hainan for the new year?" Grandma stomped her feet anxiously. "If you don't believe it, just return the safety pendant to that dead girl. She definitely won't let me starve to death." "But you might." Mom and Dad were silent. It turns out they were very clear about how excessive they had been towards me since childhood, to the point where I didn't even have the confidence to refute them, foolish as I am. I lost my life because I was infatuated with cheap familial affection. The younger brother was extremely agitated. "Isn't the peace token from Xing Yu just an addition to my jade Buddha? Why does this worthless scrap have space?" He couldn't control the volume, so I pretended to just wake up and asked in confusion, "What extra?" Grandma hurriedly squeezed out a loving smile. "Little Yu, does your head still hurt?" Mom also unusually asked about my well-being, and Dad shamelessly said they heard I had a high fever and specifically rushed back. Xing Jiao deliberately held the peace pendant to test me. "Xing Yu, I want to trade this for the jade Buddha." I frowned. Why should I? He saw that I had no intention of snatching it and gave a glance to my grandmother. "Grandma," following the agreed-upon words, "tricked me, little Yu. I just asked the master. And he said your illness this time is due to evil spirits entering your body. And only Buddhism can subdue it. This is a consecrated jade Buddha. Yao Yao usually doesn't let anyone touch it. I emotionally accepted the exchange. Although there is no difference between the two in the post-apocalyptic world, the jade Buddha is still worth some money now. Mom never believed Grandma's words, and seeing me take advantage of the situation made her even more uncomfortable. She repeatedly reminded me that once I got better, I had to return it to my brother. I nodded in agreement, and as soon as they left the room, I would send the jade Buddha to someone I knew for appraisal and quick sale. The high fever unexpectedly lasted for 3 days, and even the breath I exhaled was extremely hot. The Xing family was busy coming and going, and not a single person noticed that I was burning red all over, thanks to their indifference. I had enough time to adapt to my prematurely awakened abilities in my previous life. I only realized the power of spatial abilities when I was on the brink of death. In this life, I finally have the opportunity to put it into practice. At the same time, Grandma's prophecies were continuously validated. Dad and Mom finally believe that the end of the world is near, mortgaging the house for loans, borrowing money from all relatives and friends, and taking out online loans, worrying themselves to sleepless nights. Xing Jiayao was very excited to prepare for great achievements in the post-apocalyptic world. He immersed himself in researching various post-apocalyptic novels and survival videos, coordinating the renovation of the safe house and stockpiling supplies. Of course, all of the above was done without my knowledge, because my grandmother exaggeratedly described my ruthless crimes in my past life. The whole family unanimously decided to punish me, this ungrateful wolf. To suffer in the post-apocalyptic world, by the time my fever broke. They had already raised 8 million, all is ready, only the east wind is missing. The east wind just won't come. Seeing that the living room was almost overflowing with the snacks and drinks purchased by Xing Jiayao, he finally came to me and asked, "Sister, if you unexpectedly got a spatial pendant, how would you activate it?" I am confused. What are you saying? I don't understand. It's this kind of spatial pendant. Xing Jiayao immediately sent me several post-apocalyptic stories. I've been writing a novel recently and want to innovate on this plot. Grandma cautiously added, Yao Yao is talking about a novel, not reality, looking at my parents' stance, as if they were guarding against thieves. Pretending not to notice that they had a problem was really a test of acting skills. However, if they want to play, I will naturally accompany them. On the first day, Xing Jiayao returned home with a bruised face and a swollen nose. The next day, Xing Jiayao got himself a fever. Mumbling and holding onto the safety pendant tightly, on the third day, Xing Jiayao collapsed from heatstroke after running wildly under the scorching sun at 40 degrees, nearly suffering from heatstroke. On the fourth day, I suggested writing about the protagonist bursting with energy at the brink of death. Xing Jiayao didn't dare to try anymore. Grandma scolded me harshly, saying I had a wicked heart, while Mom was so angry she wanted to kill me, the troublemaker who came up with this idea. However, they hate me to the core but still have to coax me. As record high temperatures begin to be set around the world, the atmosphere at home becomes increasingly tense. Xing Jiayao was anxiously pacing, and Dad suggested, with great pain, to return the safety pendant to me, waiting for the space to appear before snatching it back. At worst, I could be used as a mobile warehouse. This won't do. I decisively cut out a space the size of this room and compressed it into the safety pendant. Then created an air wall to block Xing Jiayao's door, waiting for them to discover it themselves. Hey, what is blocking me? Is it broad daylight and the ghost is hitting the wall? Help, I can't get out. Don't be afraid, Yao Yao, Mommy is coming to save you. The two groups of people collided, leaving me dizzy. I glanced at that fool Xing Jiayao, who was just crying. So I had no choice but to take matters into my own hands and smash the wooden box containing the safety pendant high on his head. He was hit and bleeding all over his face, but the next moment he jumped up excitedly and said, "Got it, finally got it." It turns out it was the blood on the head. I removed the air wall, allowing them to hug each other and cry and laugh freely, hiding their achievements and fame. With the space in hand, stockpiling officially begins. I thought I would be immediately kicked out since I had lost my value, but my grandmother fell ill. She cried to me, saying that her parents were heartless and unwilling to spend money, begging me to take her to the hospital to see a doctor and get a prescription. She got the medicine and scolded the quack doctor for making her condition worse, insisting on going to another hospital. A couple of days later, she complained about the heat and was unwilling to go out, pretending to be bedridden and instructing me to take her medical records to find a specialist for a consultation. During the day, I tirelessly run errands to buy medicine, and at night, I work hard to transport the supplies and the safety pendant, who told me that after just 3 years of work, I still have less than 6 figures in savings after paying off my student loans, and that maxing out my credit card can only yield over 200,000, compared to the 8 million, it's too shabby. Fortunately, Xing Jiayao has been a fool for over a decade, accustomed to being the prince at home and not allowing others to touch the space, and too lazy to count the supplies thrown in. Anyway, there will be plenty of opportunities for zero-cost purchases in the future. He confidently pointed to the landscape and said, as long as we stay at home and avoid the initial heat, what good things will we not have once those cannon fodder die from the heat? Grandma clapped her hands and said, my clever grandson has great wisdom. He was born to accomplish great things. With the support of this reborn individual, Xing Jiayao became increasingly convinced that he was the chosen one, and his parents could no longer demand to take turns managing the space, busily hoarding supplies. The harder they try, the luckier I get. I remember the days when my parents punished me by making me go hungry, and how the neighbors would give me food and drink to some extent. After I returned from the hospital, I chatted with the elderly in the community under the pretext of sharing expert medical advice. I originally planned to subtly reveal the news about Xing Jiayao's stockpiling to remind them to prepare early. I never expected that they knew more than I did. Aunt Xiao can't keep her mouth shut and is the first to ask, Xiao Yu, has your family recently struck it rich? No. Then why are you modifying doors and windows and buying self-defense gadgets? Aunt Xiao had an expression that said she couldn't be fooled. My cousin's husband's cousin told me all about it. I was stunned. She lowered her voice. The triangular bayonet is a key-controlled weapon, and your brother still wants to find a way to buy a gun. You mustn't get involved in illegal matters. I was so shocked that I was speechless. Has Xing Jiayao inflated to this extent? He is going to be targeted, and I won't have the chance to retrieve the safety pendant filled with supplies. Old man Xia shook his head regretfully. It would have been great if your family had told me earlier that you wanted to buy a rubber boat. That boss is in my fishing friends group. Of course not, Grandma Lu replied. Your grandma rented that storage room from my old friend. You should know that neighbors at least get a 20% discount. Xiao Yu, if you really don't mind a second marriage with a child. I have 7 or 8 men here who are all better than the ones your mother picked. Everyone was chattering away, revealing quite a bit about the Shen family's shady dealings outside. No wonder they didn't drive me away even after getting the space. It turns out they not only wanted to squeeze my savings and stockpile but also planned to sell me off for one last profit. It really is a ruthless exploitation, using every possible means. Fortunately, I had a few big fights with them in my early years, so even those who are eager to find a partner wouldn't bypass me when it comes to the betrothal gifts. The Xing family was immersed in the atmosphere of the impending apocalypse, recklessly forgetting how well-informed the residents of the relocation housing community were, and how transparent personal privacy was in the era of big data. I felt something was off and opened the app that Xing Jiayao often used, and sure enough, I saw him unable to contain himself, showing off his superiority: kayaks, solar panels, diesel generators, and a heavily fortified safe house. Some comments below mock him for reading too many novels, while more are serious discussions among apocalypse survival enthusiasts about cost-effectiveness, worshipping hardcore experts. Xing Jiayao, who was so pampered that he forgot everything, didn't even turn off the location. The latest comment is from a local online user. Boss, I'm in the neighborhood next to yours. Let's go survival camping together sometime. Refreshing the homepage again, Xing Jiayao has set the account to private. This enthusiastic netizen is not lying. He not only lives in the neighboring community but is also a genuine doomsday survival enthusiast, with over 30,000 fans. Not many in number, but extremely active. After I sneaked into the fan group, I found that they were discussing Xing Jiao's unusual reaction. Meanwhile, the uncles and aunts who had opened their mouths were still discussing the abnormal behavior of the Xing family, each taking turns to speak. I thought that my grandmother, being so old and a survivor of the apocalypse, would have some sense of crisis. As a result, she took every possible measure to guard against her friends and family, even trying to trick them out of money, while secretly notifying her old partner to stockpile food, water, and medicine, just to compete with her rival in the square dance team and show off her insider knowledge. The old lover firmly believed, spending money like water, which alarmed the children at home, thinking their old father had fallen victim to a telecom scam. As time went on, a rumor spread in the community that the Americans were plotting to raise food prices, and the experienced elders began to stockpile supplies. Mom didn't say anything to anyone, she just suddenly changed from feeling inferior to feeling overly confident. In the past, when I heard about my peers, Xing Jiao, getting into prestigious schools, I would feel a bit sour, but now I look at everyone with pity. Only my father still retained some sense of reason in the family, knowing to use the excuse of running a supermarket as a cover. Grains, oil, salt, chicken, duck, fish, meat, vegetables, and fruits are all directly transported to the warehouse in bulk, and then collected by Xing Jiao into the space. However, from the perspective of normal people, the behavior of purchasing a large amount of goods without renting a shop is also quite strange. The entire Xing family seemed to be dancing in fluorescent light in the darkness, incredibly eye-catching. I can't waste any more time with them, faced with the curiosity and probing of my uncle and aunt. I half-truthfully mentioned my aunt who works in the military, hinting that she had called back recently. It's pointless to say more, just a phrase like, "there's someone above," is enough to make them increase their stockpiling efforts. Such rumors can be generated by various marketing accounts every day, with thousands being created. Whether one believes them or not, they do not cause too much disturbance. In fact, my aunt did call me the day before the heavy rain to remind me. At that time, the temperature continued to rise, with clear skies and no wind, showing no signs of rain at all. Grandma resented her for not giving Dad money to buy a house and for cutting off ties with the family, preventing me from listening to her and making preparations, which nearly led us to starve during the flood disaster. In this lifetime, I'll call my aunt. With her intelligence, she will definitely find a way to verify it. As soon as I thought about the bustling, prosperous city turning into wasteland, I quickly popped some digestive tablets and rushed to my favorite snack street, eating and packing food until my phone was blown up, then returned home smelling of smoke and fireworks. "Why did you come back so late? Who did you meet today?" Xing Jiao nervously interrogated through 3 doors, completely unaware of how abnormal he looked. I stared at the iron fence installed by Aunt Sun's housekeeper's son and couldn't help but laugh. "What does it have to do with you? You dare to speak to me like this?" Xing Jiao was furious. "Then I'll leave." Grandma hurriedly pulled him aside. "What are you doing blocking the door, child?" She smiled broadly and kindly led me to the living room. "Xiao you must be hot. Sit down quickly. Grandma has saved you some chilled mung bean soup." I really like drinking mung bean soup, but unfortunately, seeing the extra bed in the living room instantly ruined my appetite. 80,000 yuan, a jade bed that cures all ailments. In the past, no matter how much Grandma made a fuss, Dad couldn't bear to part with her, but now they would rather rob a bank to stock up on supplies. It's impossible for them to have spare money to buy such junk, unless. I slammed the soup bowl against the jade bed and said, "Grandma, how many times have I told you this is a scam? Which scoundrel sold this to you? I'm calling the police right now." The person hiding in the master bedroom heard the noise and came out. "We can't call the police." Among them were unfamiliar faces. A plump middle-aged woman was holding on to a young man with a dazed expression, scrutinizing me critically. "Your temper is too bad. You need to change it in the future." Sure enough, Grandma sold me again. I originally planned to retrieve the peace pendant filled with supplies before leaving, letting the Xing family fall from heaven to hell, so they could truly experience the pain of struggling to survive in a post-apocalyptic world, just like the tragic future they have predetermined for me. I've changed my mind now. I want to see with my own eyes how they turn against each other and kill one another. Does Xiao Yu not recognize you? Aunt Chin, Mom forced a natural introduction of Chin Chulian, who sold health products. This is a relative from our hometown. I heard that your grandma is not well, so she specially brought a jade bed. Grandma served me another bowl of mung bean soup and pretended to be generous and loving, saying, "Little Yu is also worried about me. Good child. It has koik seed added to prevent heat and fire. The sweet fragrance carries a refreshing coolness, evoking long-buried childhood memories. When I was young, my parents were too lazy to take care of me, so they threw me back to my hometown. When my grandmother was in a good mood, she would make a lot of sweets, malt candy, peanut candy, sesame candy, persimmon cakes, and sweet potato chips. Although the best is reserved for my younger brother, most of it is given to the children of other relatives. I can always get a little bit." That little sweetness once made me believe that my grandmother loved me too, until I was accepted into a prestigious university. I heard my grandmother teach my father to give his daughter a little kindness and favors from time to time, so that he could keep her under control. Otherwise, it would be like my aunt, flying far away and getting nothing. Knowing that she is plotting against me, I still can't bring myself to sever ties, because for so many years, my biological parents were unwilling to even spare this little bit of false warmth. I desperately want to prove that I am not an unnecessary existence. Even resigning from my job to return to this city to take care of my grandmother because my parents took Xing Jiayao on a trip and no one was there to look after her. It is both a repayment for my grandmother's past care and a way to prove my worth to make my parents regret. In the end, neither love nor repentance was obtained, and life was given up in vain. Just like the people present, when they plotted against me, there was not a trace of guilt in their eyes, only naked greed. Under my grandmother's intense gaze, I finished the enhanced mung bean soup sip by sip, deliberately showing a weary and drowsy expression. She couldn't hide her joy. "If you're tired, just sleep first. We'll wash up tomorrow." I staggered to my feet and, as soon as I entered the room, pretended to lose consciousness and collapsed onto the bed. They were shouting and grabbing at me, and just before I couldn't help but want to twist their necks. They finally believed that I had fallen for it and returned to the living room to drink wedding wine. In the surveillance footage, the two families are smiling and toasting each other. "It seems to be quite a good breeding," Chin Chulian commented with satisfaction. "But let's be clear, if you can rest assured," Grandma interrupted her, "our two families know each other well. How could we possibly run away?" Mom affectionately tried to get closer. Anfu used to hold little Yu and kept saying how pretty his sister was. The man who was called by name clapped his hands with a silly smile. "Sister is beautiful," Xing Jiayao gleefully called her brother-in-law, and Dad patted the fool's shoulder, praising, "You're quite the handsome young man too." The room was filled with a cheerful atmosphere, and both sides felt they had gained. In the eyes of my blood relatives, I am only worth a dowry of 300,000 in a jade bed. Unfortunately, they have the life to take the money, but not the life to spend it. Chin Chulian waited until the night was deep and quiet, humming a song as she prepared to transport me to the villa on the outskirts of the city. "Good son, this time Mom has found you a wife who graduated from a prestigious university to improve our genes, so we can finally make it up to your deceased father underground." The man chuckled foolishly. "Wife, have a baby, ah." I held his neck and choked him unconscious in Chin Chulian's terrified gaze. "Do as I say." Chin Chulian made over 10 million in ill-gotten gains selling health products, with clients across various industries, much better than the Baixing family. "The soundproofing of the villa is better. I have control over her foolish son, and I've put together a list of supplies. Don't think about calling the police. I have a mental health evaluation report. I won't go to jail for murder." She broke down and cursed, "My son has never touched you. It was your grandmother who asked me to discuss marriage, and it was your parents who received the money. If you want revenge, go after them." I knocked out the fool who had just woken up with a punch. "No rush. The idiot's mother is very anxious," desperately calling the merchant to urge them to ship the goods. In just 3 days, the supplies I specified were gathered. The black-hearted merchant indeed has more connections than ordinary people, and he was even able to obtain the controlled weapons that Xing Jiayao has been longing for: crossbow, large machete, Mitsubishi military dagger, and even a shotgun. I fiddled with the crossbow in the fool's terrified gaze, successfully making him shrink into the corner and learn to be quiet, completely dispelling Qin Chulian's thoughts of counterattacking and calling for help. She loves her son like life itself and doesn't dare to gamble her precious son against my speed. I am very pleased with her ability to recognize the situation, and I made a list of gifts for her to send to the chaotic Xing family in the name of gratitude: a complete set of health equipment, boxes of fake cigarettes and fake alcohol, branded inferior skincare products, and modified motorcycles. In the surveillance footage, I can clearly see the 4 members of the Xing family smiling from ear to ear after receiving the gift, praising Qin Chulian for being the big boss and wishing her to soon hold her golden grandson. Although Qin Chulian didn't understand why I repaid kindness with enmity, she exploited her years of experience in deception without any flaws. As soon as she stepped out the door, the Xing family erupted into another fierce argument. You can't put the physiotherapy device on the jade bed anymore. Alcohol and cigarettes take up too much space. We will have plenty of opportunities to get better things in the future. Sounds nice, but in the post-apocalyptic world, what are you still putting on expensive cream for? Shut up, all of you. The motorcycle can go out to collect supplies, and you are all useless. Xing Jiayao kicked over the half-height therapy device in a fit of rage. Her eyes fierce. I said, from now on, only I can decide how to use the space, you child. You just waste things. I must. Grandma was so distressed that she kept stomping her feet, and after touching the baseball bat in Xing Jiao's hand, she swallowed the rest of her words. Dad and Mom no longer dared to disagree, anxiously trying to appease the child with soft words, because Xing Jiao really does hit people. After I left, such a farce had already been staged once. At first, the whole family praised Grandma Jiang for being as shrewd as ever, managing to sell me for a good price of 300,000 in such a short time, while also avoiding the trouble of having to drive me away. After receiving the money, they quickly purchased a large amount of supplies and finally realized a serious problem. There isn't enough space. The peace buckle was always held tightly in Xing Jiao's hand. He had never organized anything himself from childhood to adulthood, and he didn't understand planning at all. Just stuffing whatever he had into it haphazardly. A space of less than 500 cubic meters is simply not worth building. If it weren't for me diligently moving things every night, it would have come out long ago. Nowadays, when problems arise, Mom wants to take over the trivial matters that her son is impatient with, but she is harshly slapped by Xing Jiao. Do you think you deserve to touch my space? Xing Jiao was inherently selfish, and after reading too many post-apocalyptic novels, he became even more of a believer in the jungle law of survival of the fittest, even suspecting that his grandmother had deliberately concealed key information with ulterior motives. After all, she said that in my previous life, only I could see the space inside the safety pendant. The reality is completely opposite. The peace buckle is like a mechanism that anyone can open. Once touched, it allows for the arbitrary storage and retrieval of items. This was something that Grandma accidentally discovered in the middle of the night while covering her precious golden grandson with a blanket, so excited that she almost had high blood pressure, inadvertently waking up Xing Jiao. She had no way to argue against this and could only say that she was getting old and her memory was poor. Xing Jiao did not believe. He occupies the master bedroom with the bathroom, and has hired a renovation worker to modify the door, being more careful to guard against his family than against thieves. When the temperature exceeded 50 degrees, food delivery services nearly came to a halt. Grandma and my parents thought they could stay at home enjoying the air conditioning and feeling superior, but they were forced to go out to shop. The person with the least harvest will be penalized, directly linked to the future distribution of resources, who made all the family's resources in Xing Jiao's hands. The first step to becoming the overlord of the post-apocalyptic world is to turn his own grandmother and biological parents into servants. Grandma is old and has various chronic illnesses. She fainted from heatstroke while going out and broke her leg. Fortunately, she still had some quick wit and remembered to use the location of the future safe base as a talisman. Mom wasn't so lucky. after getting sunburned, she applied the inferior skincare products sent by Qin Chulian, and her entire face became red, swollen, and cracked, suffering immensely. Xing Jiayao turned a blind eye and coldly reminded her to improve her cooking skills, or she might be replaced at any time. Yao Yao, I am your real mother. I carried you for 10 months and gave birth to you, asking for stars when you wanted stars and asking for the moon when you wanted the moon. How could you treat me this way? Dad frowned and chimed in, Xing Jiayao, you are really out of line. Not to mention that all the money for preparing supplies is the hard-earned money of your mother and me. Even your life was given to you by your biological parents. Then what? In the post-apocalyptic world, kill the saintess first. Xing Jiayao coldly snorted with an air of superiority. Grandma said that in the last life, Xing Yu watched you all starve to death while holding on to the space. I am more filial than her. As long as you are valuable, you will have food to eat. After saying that, he slammed the door shut and seized the last opportunity to play games furiously. The grandmother, who once regarded him as her lifeline, was stunned for a moment, covering her face and crying out loudly, it shouldn't be like this, Yao Yao, you can't do this to Grandma, Xiao Yu, she cried with snot and tears, looking genuinely remorseful. The frustrated father, disturbed by his grandmother's crying, vented his anger on her, crying, what's the use of crying now? If you had told me about the spatial matter earlier, it wouldn't have turned out like this. Mom also took the opportunity to speak up, Yao Yao is such a good child. All spoiled by you, you old hag. Grandma is unable to move and is crying out in pain. The high-definition surveillance footage projected onto the large television split the Xing family of 4 into 2 completely different styles. I couldn't help but laugh. How about that? Isn't the show at my place exciting? Qin Chulian tightly closed her eyes and covered the fool's ears. We didn't see anything. We didn't hear anything. Your Excellency has plenty. Please spare us. She knows very well that the more she gains from the health supplement scam, the faster she will die. If I had known it would be like this, why did I bother in the first place? I leisurely toyed with the crossbow. You should go out and work too. I want to take over this supermarket within 3 days. Qin Chulian did not dare to defy, turning back 3 times as she walked through the dungeon she had built with her own hands. She had previously bought a daughter-in-law before me, specifically converting the basement of the villa into a dungeon to prevent the woman from being trapped and giving her grandchildren. Later, the poor woman who shared my suffering died during childbirth, and her family took a sum of money and did not pursue the matter further. Nowadays, even a fool staying inside can be considered reaping what they sow. I deliberately let Qin Chulian see the scene of the Xing family arguing over the space, hoping she wouldn't let me down. As the temperature continues to soar, there is a shortage of water and electricity supply, plunging the public into unprecedented panic. Relevant departments have taken emergency measures to halt all non-essential outdoor work and organize community-based public welfare rescue activities. However, the effectiveness is limited, and people continue to die from heatstroke every day. A large number of discussions about the impending apocalypse have emerged online. Compared to the past's far-fetched abnormal celestial phenomena and dubious religious prophecies, this time's rumors of the apocalypse are particularly convincing. Not only is it close to reality, but it also lists the sequence of natural disasters from high temperatures, floods, blizzards to polar nights, vividly and specifically depicting human physiological responses in extreme environments. It is as if a witness is recounting the horrors of the post-apocalyptic world. In fact, it really is. Anyway, it shows the location of the Qin family's villa, and the new account is registered using the idiot's identity information. Please have the hired trolls transfer money from Qin Chulian's account as well. No one can track me down. Saving one is better than none. I lurked in the fan group of the small influencer who wanted to meet with Xing Jiayao, and soon I was recognized as a big shot thanks to the experience I gained in the post-apocalyptic world. The little internet celebrity is very daring, conducting survival equipment reviews outdoors in temperatures exceeding 50 degrees, and her fan base is skyrocketing. He became more and more enthusiastic, recalling another survival expert who had suddenly disappeared under my guidance. At the command, the fans immediately sprang into action, quickly uncovering Xing Jiao's detailed address. And even found out that the elderly residents in the surrounding neighborhoods had started stockpiling supplies before the heat wave. The reasons for stockpiling are varied, and when asked about the source, it all leads back to the Xing family. The fan group was completely in an uproar, all shouting for the little internet celebrity to come and meet the big shot. The little internet celebrity didn't miss the chance to become popular again. Wearing the full set of sunscreen clothing that had the best testing results, and knocked on the iron door of the Xing family, "Is the boss at home? I am the reckless brother from the post-apocalyptic world, sincerely wanting to invite you to discuss a grand plan." There was no air conditioning in the hallway, and he was panting after just 2 minutes of knocking. Seeing that no one responded, he simply shouted, "Xing Jiao, I know you're home, you can search my account." "I have no ill intentions." Xing Jiao stared at the little internet celebrity in the visual access control, gripping the kitchen knife tightly. "Grandma, you go and lure him in." "Yao Yao, don't be impulsive." Grandma trembled in fear. "Killing is against the law. It's not the right time yet." "Dad has already found the account of the post-apocalyptic Manguan said irritably. "Can you use your brain? This guy is an internet celebrity and is currently live streaming." Finished. Mom's face turned ashen as she scrolled through the live comments. "They all know we've been hoarding food." During their argument, the little internet celebrity couldn't take it anymore. "Family, big shots only show up after being visited 3 times. Let's retreat for now and come back tomorrow." Just as the Xing family let out a sigh of relief, someone outside shouted, "Boss Xing, I live right below you. Give me a shout if you need anything." He shouted and then left. As if it was just for the sake of being noticed. However, less than half an hour later, the doorbell rang for the 3rd time. "Old Xing, open the door, lend me some oil." Round after round, they really got Xing Jiao angry. "Get lost, this middle-aged man is my father's chess friend." Feeling embarrassed after being scolded by the younger generation, he went back and changed the group name in the community group to expose. "My family's stock is very abundant. Anyone in urgent need can find me." A single stone stirs up 1,000 waves. In the community, there are few families that allow the elderly to stockpile goods. More often, it is young people who only have snacks and drinks at home, relying on community assistance to have meals these days. Seeing someone generously share, I excitedly flooded the screen with thanks. "Last year, I joined the group to apologize to my grandmother, just to take advantage of the situation. I remembered, before 1603. A lot of goods came in to prepare for opening a supermarket." "That's right, that storage room belongs to my mom's friend's house, just down the street." 1603. "Is there any milk powder? The child is in urgent need." 1603. "I am willing to pay double the amount. Why can't I find anyone?" "Is 1603 still there? I can pay 10 times more for home delivery." Mom leaving the group is useless. She instantly received several friend requests, so angry that she smashed her phone. It must be those few people from earlier. Shameless, all of them are shameless beggars. There was another knock at the door from outside, with men, women, and children threatening and pleading in turn, clearly indicating that they would continue knocking indefinitely if the door was not opened. Finally, on a deep night, the outer iron gate was pried open, when the second door was being smashed with a bang. The grandmother recalled the terrifying memories of her past life and immediately wanted to escape. "No, I can't stay here any longer. They are numerous and desperate. They can do anything when they're starving." Xing Jiao, who was well versed in post-apocalyptic novels, also understood this principle and angrily questioned the others. "How did they find out about this? Who leaked the news?" Dad slapped him hard. "What's the use of saying this now? You dare to hit me." Xing Jiao's eyes were about to burst with rage as he pulled out a kitchen knife, ready to strike, looking for death. In the midst of his actions, he suddenly frowned and cried out in pain. It was actually Grandma in a wheelchair who bumped into him. "Yao Yao, that's your biological father." The prepared father took the opportunity to knock the knife out of Xing Jiao's hand with a belt, beating him mercilessly. "Do you want to kill your own father? You little beast. Do you still dare to treat me like a slave, riding on my neck?" Mom cried and pulled him. "Don't hit him. If you hit him again, you'll kill Yao Yao." Grandma also cried and advised. "Jianyun, just vent your anger. Yao Yao is the only heir of our old Xing family. I will kill this unfilial son today. Dad's face was full of ruthlessness, clearly intent on murder. I want to have plenty of children in the future. Xing Jianyun, Xing Jiayao, covered in blood, shouted, if you hit me again, I'll crush the safety pendant. Everyone, just stop living and wait to die. Dad was frozen in place, and Grandma and Mom also stopped crying. In the suffocating silence, they heard the sound of welding from outside. The second door was on the verge of collapse. Xing Jiayao, who had been arrogant for more than half a month, finally knew fear. Dad calmed down and suggested organizing the space, putting what couldn't fit outside for others to take, and then looking for an opportunity to escape. However, upon sorting it out, it was found to be completely inconsistent. The supplies bought for 7 million have surprisingly only 1/3 left. Time was tight, and they couldn't afford to blame each other, so they all spoke at once to guide Xing Jiayao in making full use of her spatial abilities. The more anxious Xing Jiayao became, the more chaotic it was, so she had no choice but to let her relatively trustworthy mother access the space, of course. The premise is that it must be returned immediately after being organized under his close supervision. Before the last security door was breached, Grandma smeared blood on her face and trembled as she opened the door. What do you want? The imposing crowd was momentarily speechless upon seeing the white-haired old man sitting in a wheelchair. Please, at least leave something for the old woman, Grandma pleaded humbly. It's not easy for anyone. Our things are really still in the warehouse and haven't been moved back. I saw many familiar faces through the surveillance. Teacher Jean upstairs, Uncle Zhao on the first floor, Aunt Sue from the next unit, Grandma Lu's son-in-law, Uncle Xie's son. Some of them are indeed out of ammunition and food, while others have stockpiled supplies early under disguise, who exposed the Xing family. The highest temperature tested by the little internet celebrity outdoors has already exceeded 60 degrees. Posing a risk of heat death whether driving or walking outside. Even after experiencing the apocalypse once, seeing the ugliness of human nature still makes me feel uncomfortable. This group of people was exhausted from banging on the door, their bodies drenched in sweat, their faces as pale as paper, staring with wide eyes, breathing rapidly as if they might faint at any moment. What are you standing there for? Grab it, one person hid behind and shouted loudly, while the others snapped back to reality and rushed into the house. Grandma's wheelchair was knocked over, and she quickly ran to hide behind the air conditioner. Trembling, Dad, Mom, and Xing Jiayao tightly held onto several boxes, and after a few punches and kicks, they cried out and let go. All the cabinets and boxes in the entire house that could hide things have been completely ransacked. And there are people fighting over the ice cubes in the refrigerator. The sorrow of the Xing family was 3 parts feigned and 7 parts genuine, as they finally confirmed in front of everyone that there was no more food left in the house. The robbers left a mess all over the ground and left, even having experienced an apocalypse. The victims being the wicked Xing family still makes me feel uncomfortable about the ugliness of human nature, especially the neighbor across the door, who wanted to take advantage of the chaos to smash the air conditioner. However, their family lives nearby and has been robbed the most, already noticed by their accomplices. Once the high temperature passes, the flood will submerge the lower floors, and the opposite door is likely to become the next target of plunder. The 4 members of the Xing family, bruised and battered, locked the door tightly and solemnly counted their supplies. When they spent money to procure supplies, they secretly included their own goods, and now that the accounts don't add up, they all blame me. The missing items might have been stolen by Xingyu. The dead girl has always been heavy-hearted. She might have eavesdropped on us long ago to take revenge. No wonder she's so busy driving out. Last time, Qin Chulian said she was training Xingyu in the basement. Let's call and ask. Qing, be careful not to expose the secrets. A few people discussed their talking points, and a video call invitation from Grandma popped up on Qin Chulian's phone. I waited until the 3rd time before signaling Qin Chulian to connect. She was very perceptive, casually brushing over my situation with a few words, pretending to boast about her advanced foresight in stockpiling food, living in a villa with high privacy and excellent security measures. Grandma's eyes sparkled as she flattered along with the conversation, successfully prying out the detailed address. The detached villa is separated by dozens of meters and is located on a hillside, making it unlikely to be affected by floods. The Xing family was overjoyed. The safe house they painstakingly built is no longer safe at all. They must escape. The environment is harsh, the situation is urgent, and there isn't much money left. Chinchulian's villa is the best choice. Two big men are very confident in dealing with a woman and a useless fool. Chinchulian had watched the surveillance a few times and roughly understood the situation. She cautiously flattered, "Sister Xing, do you want to trick them out of their space? Rest assured, I will definitely help you deal with them thoroughly." I pretended not to notice the resentment and greed she was desperately trying to hide, allowing her to act freely. As a ruthless scammer who can obtain control devices and has actually killed an innocent woman. Chinchulian is cold-blooded and constantly looking for opportunities to kill me. It's just that the foolish son is in my hands, making her wary, not daring to act rashly. Nowadays, opportunities are knocking at her door, and she is so excited that her whole body is trembling slightly. The Xing family and Chinchulian each had their own ulterior motives and tested each other a few times. After confirming that the other had taken the bait, they eagerly arranged to meet. The date was set by her grandmother. She remembered that in her previous life, the rainfall on the first day of the heavy rain was still within the normal range, and many people went out to get soaked in the rain, thanking the heavens for ending the heat. The reason was that Chinchulian claimed she had a gout attack and had no medicine, and she didn't dare to leave her son alone at home. Mom took the opportunity to say that she has friends in the hospital who can help deliver it to the villa. The two sides hit it off immediately, as affectionate as if they were family. After the video call ended, the Xing family in the surveillance footage quietly cheered and raised their glasses to celebrate that they could escape to freedom tomorrow. Only my grandmother was the first to suspect that I had also been reborn, teaming up with Chinchulian to deceive the whole family and seize the space. "You must be old and confused," Xing Jiao scoffed. "If Xing Yu had memories of a past life, she would never have given up her space. So why go through all this?" "Yes, yes, yes. Yao Yao is still smart." Grandma patted her chest and laughed. "That loser could never have a life as good as mine. She survived in her last life thanks to the safety pendant I gave her, and she still dares to ignore my words to save you all. The ungrateful white-eyed wolf deserves to be a fool's wife." I watched coldly as she crazily cursed me, twisting things around to take credit for herself. Afraid that Xing Jiayao would hold a grudge for the previous incident, unfortunately, the old lady doesn't know that her son and his family have long agreed to treat her as a discarded pawn. However, the three of them weren't that smart either. They pride themselves on being one step ahead in the game, yet they fail to see that what Chinchulian wants is not the antidote, but the space and the lives of the Xing family. Of course, what they want the most is my life. There are only 3 days left until the heavy rain floods the entire city. I sent the final notice to my aunt and the little internet celebrity, and then I cancelled the account registered under the identity of a fool. Thanks to Xing Jiao, the little internet celebrity gained a lot of traffic and became a mid-tier internet celebrity. He has complete faith in me, this mysterious big shot, and immediately relayed the message to hundreds of thousands of fans, urging them to prepare for the flood. To my surprise, the platform not only did not limit the flow like before, but instead gave many post-apocalyptic related videos prominent recommendations, as if it were some kind of implicit endorsement. More and more people believe that extreme weather will not end in the short term, risking their lives to go out in search of a way to survive. At the moment the heavy rain fell, the temperature began to drop, and the entire city was in turmoil. The residents of the community were equally excited as the Xing family took the opportunity to flee amidst the chaos. I stretched a bit while eating a late-night snack and watching the surveillance of the Xing family. Mom tiptoed ahead, Xing Jiayao followed closely, and Dad turned back for a moment, saying in a deep voice, "Mom, don't blame me, just stay alive." After speaking, he gently closed the door and left. Grandma lay on her favorite jade bed, sleeping soundly and unaware. Being able to drink the same kind of sleep-inducing mung bean porridge as me is worth her heartfelt efforts for her precious grandchildren. Confirming the news of the Xing family's departure, Chinchulian respectfully presented the transfer contracts for the supermarket and pharmacy with both hands. "Sister Xing, I told them to have Anfu go to the entrance to meet them, I said with a smile that seemed like a smile but wasn't. So what? I mean to trick them in first. She chuckled awkwardly and swallowed. There are quite a few people outside getting rained on. It wouldn't be good for your plan. That makes sense. I carefully checked the transfer contract and, after verifying it over the phone, nodded in satisfaction. You have cleared your debt to me, then. Chen Qiulian was suffocated and fainted. The effect of the medicine is quite fast. I shook my hand, still not quite used to distorting space. The fool huddled in the corner, trembling, watching me drag Chen Qiulian into the room without daring to say a word. I didn't know I was afraid. I gave him a friendly smile and locked the door. Good luck to you all. The timing was perfect. Just as we finished tidying up, the Xing family arrived. I sent a message using Chen Qiulian's phone. Anfu is afraid of the rain. You all come in by yourselves. Since obtaining the spatial ability, Xing Jiayao has not left the house, directing the family servants to run around while hiding in an air-conditioned room, playing games and binging on junk food, gaining over 30 pounds in just a month, a living moving target. I stood on the second floor, aiming my crossbow at him, and greeted loudly, "Long time no see. Have you been doing well?" Xing Jiayao looked up at me, his expression changing drastically. "Xing Yu, how did you end up here? You think I would be where?" I sneered. "I'm not in the dungeon being tormented to the point of death by Chen Qiulian and her son. Are you disappointed? Useless. How dare you insult me, you worthless piece of trash." Xing Jiayao was instantly enraged and threw something at me from the space. "Ah!" I shot through his leg without blinking. "Move again. And it's your pig brain, Xing Yu." Mom screamed as she rushed to stand in front of Xing Jiayao, glaring angrily and scolding. "This is your own brother. Are you crazy? I shouldn't have given birth to you, this harbinger of doom." I looked down at the hysterical woman, her sunburned face smeared with fake luxury skincare products, swollen and cracked, with dark circles under her eyes from the bruise inflicted by Xing Jiayao. However, when faced with danger, she still fought desperately to protect her son, just like my grandmother in my past life. She unhesitatingly betrayed me for her son and grandson, who have been out of contact. In their lives, men are as precious as treasures, while daughters are as worthless as weeds. Therefore, personal revenge has little meaning. After all, they are my blood relatives. I must let them die in a way that befits them. In a moment of distraction, Dad seized the opportunity to snatch the safety pendant hanging around Xing Jiayao's neck and ran towards the car. "Jian Yun, wait a minute. We haven't gotten in the car yet." Mom cried out in despair. Xing Jiayao roared, "Old beast, give me back my safety pendant." Dad turned a deaf ear and excitedly started the car. "You all can wait here to die." With a wave, I cut all four wheels. The car crashed into the wall with a bang. "Help!" Dad was pressed down by the airbag like a panicked old turtle. "Wife, Yao Yao, quickly save me." Xing Jiayao was in so much pain that her face was covered in tears, laughing maliciously. "Deserved it. How dare you compete with me, Mom? Go get the safety pendant back." Mom was both angry at her husband for being heartless and distressed that he was hurt. Braving the heavy rain, she dragged him back into the house, and suddenly her hand holding the safety pendant was tightly gripped. Dad coaxed while sucking on the cold air. "Honey, the child doesn't understand. This thing must be held by the two of us." Xing Jiayao shouted anxiously. "Mom, Xing Jianyun just tried to leave you behind and escape. Don't believe his nonsense." But, Mom hesitated, biting her lip. "Why don't I hold on to it instead?" The father and son both refused in unison. "No way. A family of 3 is making a racket in the middle of the night, treating the villa area like a no-man's land." By continuously expanding the uses of my spatial abilities, my senses have become increasingly sharp, allowing me to clearly hear the murmurs mixed in with the sound of the rain. And in the distance, someone is using binoculars to spy. The heavy rain is intensifying. "It's time, 3 of you. It seems you have forgotten something." I slowly opened my mouth to remind them, spreading my palm to show the safety buckle they were fighting over. "This is mine, and even if it's crushed, it won't be yours." "You dare, Xiao Yu, don't be impulsive." "Xing Yu, calm down first." The 3 members of the Xing family were too preoccupied to think about how I got the item, rushing to stop me, cursing, and pleading. "It's late. I swept through the space to move the necessary supplies and decisively crushed the safety pendant, "Don't," accompanied by the screams of collapse. A large amount of supplies appeared out of nowhere, pinning down the 3 people who wanted to rush in and kill me. "Goodbye. I wish you all the best." I waved my hand at my family, who were crying out in pain, and rode my customized motorcycle against the rushing crowd, leaving the place of chaos behind. In this life, I do not expect to save the world, nor will I become a slave to hatred. Who can survive until the end depends on individual fate. I rode my motorcycle out of the villa area, saw the rushing water, and immediately switched to Chinchillian's off-road vehicle, heading straight to the newly acquired supermarket and pharmacy. The entire city briefly revived from the heat, bursting with vitality but also erupting into chaos. Both street-facing pharmacies had been smashed and looted, but fortunately, the supermarket had stricter anti-theft measures. By the time I arrived, I was still able to collect things into my space. The collection of supplies has come to a pause, and I walked into the temporary dwelling I had chosen for myself, as expected of a high-end community. The property management even has a front desk to receive guests. The little girl smiled brightly as she confirmed the information with me, quietly expressing to her colleague her relief that the high temperatures had ended and life could finally return to normal. I couldn't bear it, so I reminded her to pay attention to the little internet celebrities. Even if she didn't believe it, she could stock up on some food. According to memories from a past life, this is the closest neighborhood to the safe base. As long as one can endure the heavy rain, blizzards, and the long nights without light, there will be more opportunities to survive. This large flat that I rented with all my savings has not been renovated. It's not just about wanting to keep a low profile, but also because I'm poor. Fortunately, the landlord has great taste. The security door and furniture are all high-quality brands, making it much more comfortable to live in than Chinchillian's villa. After all, there is no dirt. Even though I've been on top these days, it's hard to sleep well with my nerves so tense. After setting up the air wall, I slept for 20 hours straight, waking up to check the surveillance of the Xing family. Grandma was hiding in the master bedroom, crying and cursing. "They're all ungrateful wretches, such a sin. I should not have saved you ungrateful descendants." Beast with the heart of a wolf and the lungs of a dog, she didn't even dare to curse too loudly, afraid that people outside would know that only a lame old woman was left at home. Dad wasn't completely heartless. Before leaving, he left enough supplies for my mother to not worry about food and drink for half a year, as well as a kitchen knife for self-defense. He deliberately ignores the potential dangers, just to ease his own conscience. Grandma made countless calls, but no one answered. In her despair, she suddenly thought of looking for me. I sent a video invitation with a backhand. Grandma was so excited that her hands trembled. "Is it you, Xiao Yu? Where are you now?" "In my own home," I said with concern. "Grandma, you don't look too well. Did you forget to take your medicine?" She wiped her face haphazardly, her murky eyes continuously welling up with tears. "Xiao Yu, it's good that you're okay. Your mother is a beast that deserves to be killed 1,000 times. She sold you to Chinchillian and left me here to wait for death. Grandma has been looking for you everywhere these days and has broken her leg. Good granddaughter. Grandma knows where it's safest. Come quickly and take me away." She spoke with such sincerity that I felt nauseous. "Ting Chunying, your old face is really thick. Isn't Chinchillian the buyer you're looking for?" Grandma frantically denied. "It's not me, little you. Let me explain. Do you remember when Grandma took you to kindergarten and made you sweet cakes? Xiao Yu, Grandma loves you the most." Seeing her shameless face, speaking nonsense with her eyes wide open, I suddenly found it boring. "Aren't you willing to risk your life to save your son and grandson? Now that they are alive, you go die. What else is there to be dissatisfied with?" Grandma was struck as if by lightning, stammering and unable to speak. "Little you. You are also," I regretfully said. "Unfortunately, they died a step before you." Hang up, select the video to send, block. In one go, in the surveillance footage, Grandma trembled as she clicked on the video. "Last night, the villa was in chaos. It was unknown who released the desperately pleading Chinchillian and her son. When enemies meet, their eyes turn especially red with anger. The Xing family father and son were both injured. And Chinchullian's medicine had not yet worn off, both sides were evenly matched. Fighting until their heads were broken and bleeding, Mom was the first to die. Even a fool knows to bully the weak and fear the strong. Seeing that Xing Jiayao had difficulty walking, he rushed over to hit him. Mom wanted to save her son, but Dad pulled her away to block the triangular military dagger that Chinchullian was thrusting. She hid quite a few things right under my nose, all used against the Xing family. Dad used Mom's bleeding body as a shield and swung a baseball bat fiercely at Chinchullian. On the other side, Xing Jiayao was no match for the brute strength of the fool. Crying out for her dad to save her, he sought the wrong person. After Dad beat Chinchullian's brains out, he hid far away, coldly watching his son being beaten to death. The fool fought fiercely, only to turn around and find his mother dead, crying loudly while lying on the corpse. Puff! Half of his neck was severed, and he could no longer make a sound. I am the chosen one. Dad, covered in blood, looked mad as he surveyed the surroundings with a triumphant smile. They're all dead. Great. Before he could finish speaking, a Mitsubishi military dagger pierced his abdomen. At the end of the video, Mom fiercely pulled out the bloody military dagger and fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Die. All die. Don't. In the surveillance footage, Grandma let out a cry that was not human, desperately shouting, "Help! Someone come save my son." She couldn't see that someone had already entered the room. I turned off the surveillance, and the world was left with only the sound of the heavy rain outside. Knowing that I was about to face the real apocalypse, I felt an unprecedented sense of ease. This time, I will definitely be able to walk out of the long night.